are 1 minute and 30 seconds away from the start of Atomic Screen Printing Heat 1A for Unlimited Lights. On the course right now, 3 of our Unlimited Lights for Heat 1A will run through the entire field here because we may have some boats coming out here before we get to the start. The UL-14, the yellow boat, driven by Paul Becker. The UL-3, the Prilosec OTC, driven by Chris Grant. The UL-11, Power Punch Advanced Autoglass KNN Engineering. That's driven by a rookie, Kevin Ekrit. You'll find him on the outside. The U-20, Smetco.com, and the U00, Atomic Screen Printing WarningPower.com, and that's driven by Will Muncie.
Those are the 5 boats we expected to see here in Unlimited Lights Heat 1A. Only 3 of them have shown up so far. You're looking at Will Muncie in the all-red boat, and to the outside of him in the yellow and blue boat, that is Paul Becker. Now, the Unlimited Lights race course is 1 2/3 miles. It is a portion of the 2.5-mile course the Unlimiteds use. But at the start, they do go clear up to the end of the Unlimited course and make their running start down here to the same start-finish line that the Unlimiteds use. You're looking at the 2 boats that have gone up into the west end of the race course, Will Muncie and Paul Becker. On the clock, they have 16 seconds to the start of this race. So those 2 appear to be the only 2 in contention right now, Mark. It's Paul Becker and Will Muncie coming down to make a start.
And you're looking at Will Muncie on the inside. Paul Becker comes up. They've got 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Looks like it will be a good start. They were well behind the starting line when the digital clock counted down to 0, and they're dead even as they cross the starting line first of 3 times around for the Unlimited Lights.
So we have a 2-boat race. Will Muncie on the inside in the red boat. He is the son of the legend Bill Muncie, a name that those of you who have been around for a while watching the Columbia Cup here on the river will certainly remember. Paul Becker now is trailing Will just a little bit as they go into the turn. Becker's boat, a newer design, carries a little more air, should be faster, but Will Muncie, we call it the little red boat that can, because he drives the thing really hard, and we'll probably see him stay with Becker throughout most of these 3 laps.
There's only a couple of boat lengths between the 2 of them right now, with Becker leading. That's the yellow boat with the blue cowling. Here comes Will Muncie up beside him, coming to turn number 2.
Muncie's boat has great straightaway speed. It cannot corner as well as Becker's. This makes an interesting matchup. Now they are in their west turn, which is right in the middle of the Unlimited course, and the interesting thing about it, Mark, is that as they come out of the turn, start-finish is right there. So this may be a factor 2 laps from now when we come to the end of this race. It was Becker by a nose as they came by to finish lap 1.
And Paul Becker leads him down the front straightaway by almost a full rooster tail. He is outside of the wake of Will Muncie. Will still has just a little bit of that rooster tail in his windshield as they go. Now he's coming up again as they go to the Blue Bridge turn, and Will Muncie on the inside with the shorter way around the course is going to lead him through the turn. We'll see when they come off of the turn if Will can stretch that lead, as he has a little more boat speed than Paul Becker coming up the backstretch. But there they are, deck to deck, off the turn, Steve.
It's always an interesting matchup when you have Will Muncie racing a newer, wider boat, because he has great chute speed, normally cannot corner with the newer boats, but Becker, in that case, probably lost a little ground to him. Now look at Muncie. On the straightaway, he uses that straightaway speed to gain a little bit of an advantage into the turn, and these 2 are going to be side by side one more time when they come down to finish lap 2.
This will be the end of lap 2, given the white flag. Becker on the outside, just a little bit ahead of Muncie, about 4 or 5 boat lengths as they end lap number 2. But Muncie will pick up a little bit of straightaway on him, and they'll go back to the Blue Bridge turn. Now about a full rooster tail lead as you watch Paul Becker head down to turn number 1. This is the last time around, and if anything is an indicator, when they come up to turn 2 with the finish line right at the end of turn 2, should be a great drag race around turn 2 and down to the finish line.
But you look right now at the apex of that turn, Muncie was actually ahead, using the advantage on the inside, the shorter race course. Now here's your boat race, 3/4 of a lap to go. Paul Becker pulls up beside Muncie on the backstretch. The little red boat, Muncie will put the hammer down and try to pick up what he's lost there, and it should be a closer race in the turn than you see right now. The overlap will advantage Muncie on the inside, but Becker now, Mark, with a pretty good lead here in the last turn.
Yep, he's got a good lead, and he's holding Muncie tight into the turn. Plenty of racing room as Will comes right around the buoy line, trying to pick up enough steam to finish in first, but he doesn't. Becker comes across the line in first. Will Muncie is second. We haven't mentioned Bob Smets in the Smetco, the 20. He was way behind at the start, Steve, and he's still got another 3/4 of a lap to go, just coming off the Blue Bridge turn.
Well, Bob is running his own race out there. He's on a little different time zone, apparently, than the two guys who started side by side and gave us a pretty good run, but that's the way they finish. It's Paul Becker in the yellow and blue boat, first place. Will Muncie in the red boat gave him a good race, finished in second place, and Bob Smets will finish a distant third. That's the way they finish in Unlimited Lights, Atomic Screen Printing, Heat 1A.
Well, pretty decent race for Heat 1A, Steve Montgomery. We had some more Unlimited Light racing throughout the weekend yesterday afternoon, and we've got more later today, but we were looking at Heat 1B.
Interesting point here was Kaylee Perkins, always one of the favorites in the UL 72, did not have a good Saturday. Let's take a look at Heat 1B and the adventures of Kaylee.
We are a minute and 30 seconds away from the start of Unlimited Lights Heat 1B, the Atomic Screen Printing Unlimited Lights Heat 1B. Here's the lineup. The U5 driven by Rod Bork in the Miss Kim. The U77 MPH Auto and Marine, and that is Dan McCulloch, I think is his name. The U72 Foster Care, that's Kaylee Perkins, and the U10 Austin Ekrit. He's a rookie. He'll be on the outside, and he is from Ekrit Racing. The UL 929 from here in the Tri-Cities, Vince Zadaro in the Ice Harbor Brewery Conover Insurance, and we're still looking for the UL 40 Rockstar Energy Drink King and Bunny's Appliance. Mike Mavinsky just bought that boat a few weeks ago, but we do not see him yet on the race course as the boats are about halfway up the backstretch to come running down for their start, Steve.
I'm wondering what Kaylee Perkins is doing, or if she might be having trouble. We have three boats that are heading into the west end of the race course. There's Kaylee. She is almost a full unlimited straightaway behind the three leaders. I don't think that boat's running well. She came down the front straightaway running very, very slowly, not even on a plane. The rest of the field now with 19 seconds to go, they are about on time, and Kaylee Perkins apparently is going to be out of this. So that's a pretty big story here as we start the Unlimited Lights racing on Saturday. The rest of the field, Mark, coming down to make a start.
Rod Bork on the inside, Vince Zadaro next to him, and Dan McCullough will be on the outside. It's the way they cross the starting line. We're down to zero. Should be a good start, and leading them across the line is Rod Bork, about 3 boat lengths behind in the middle. That was Vince Zadaro, and it's Dan McCullough on the outside as they head down for the Blue Bridge turn.
Bork will have the lead and the inside. Zadaro appears to be slowing down. It looked like he was going to challenge Bork as they went into the turn, and Vince Zadaro is losing power. So our field has thinned out quite a bit, and now Kaylee's boat picks up a rooster tail and takes off. I don't know if she was having mechanical issues, which are now cured, or if her timing was simply way off. But Kaylee Perkins is almost a lap behind the leaders here at the start of this light race. It's Rod Bork out front now.
Out front by a couple of rooster tails is Rod Bork, and we'll mention that Austin Ekrit has gone dead in the water. He didn't quite make it off of the turn to the run down to the start, but they come through turn number 2 now. Rod Bork with a pretty good lead, as you can see. Dan McCullough in second place, and those are the two boats who are really racing for place right now. Kaylee Perkins has just started her first of 3 laps. Into lap 1, it's Rod Bork, and then a ways back to Dan McCullough.
Kaylee Perkins appears to have a healthy race boat. I don't know if she didn't have during the score-up or if her timing was way off, but she was nowhere near the front runners when they made the start. It's all Bork and McCullough now with 1 lap down. They are on their second lap. Kaylee Perkins running very well on the backstretch is actually in third place, Mark. She's only the third boat running right now, but she is 3/4 of a lap behind the leaders.
Yep, we're looking at Rod Bork now. We're looking at Kaylee Perkins come through the turn number 2 to end her first lap, as the leader is about a third of the way up the backstretch right now, and that's Rod Bork in the UL5, red canopy and a white hull, and coming up behind him is McCullough, and he is closing some ground up here.
McCullough is going fast. He has to move to the outside as he gets close to the rooster tail, so Bork will have the advantage of being on the inside, but McCullough does appear to have a little bit of boat speed on him in the straightaways. We'll see how this works out. Rod Bork coming by now to finish lap 2 of 3, with McCullough following him across in second place. It's way back to the backstretch for our third place boat, the red boat of Kaylee Perkins.
Looked like McCullough didn't have the ability to turn quite as well. There's Kaylee coming up the backstretch. We see the 2 lead boats. That's Rod Bork as they head down to the Blue Bridge turn on the third of 3 times around. You see McCullough trailing him by about a rooster tail or 2. Looks like Rod Bork, well, now he slowed down through the turn. That's very interesting. Rod Bork slowed down through the turn as he came off the apex of the turn, about half of that turn. And
the last time, Mark, they went up the backstretch, McCulloch made up quite a bit of the disadvantage he had. And this is his last chance to do that. He does appear now to be gaining on Rod Bork, but does he have enough race course left to do that? And will he be able to get to the inside? We'll have to watch this turn right now. It's Bork leading. You can see both boats on your screen. McCulloch has definitely closed up some of the ground, but I don't think it's going to be enough. It's going to be too little too late. Rod Bork will come around the apex, past the exit pin, take the checkered flag, and the victory in Unlimited Lights Heat 1B. Followed closely by Dan McCulloch. Kaylee Perkins has made up a lot of water on these two, but she's still a quarter of a lap back behind. Something went wrong in the cockpit, perhaps with the watches or the timing or something for Kaylee at the start of that race.
Yep, there's Kaylee finishing in third place. So it was Rod Bork first. Second went to Mr. McCulloch, Dan McCulloch, and third place to Kaylee Perkins in the UL 72. That's the way they finished.
And they're off. Hydros speeding across the water. Chester Lipinski has been racing and working on boats for years, but it's not exactly what you think.
We put on a better show than most of the big boats because we're always finishing. We got crashes, and it's just a good sport.
Chester, or Chet the Jet, is among dozens of racers from around the Northwest and even Canada after a different Columbia Cup. But they follow the same rules and point system.
And the only thing that's different than us and the big boats haven't learned how to drive the way we do. And they'll always say, well, we go the opposite direction. No, you guys go wrong.
These remote control boats are 1/8 the size of the big boats racing on the river, and each one is a replica of the Hydro competing in this year's Columbia Cup.
Nobody else can have this boat except me, because otherwise you'd have 15-foot risers.
Competing in this race is a fraction of the price, but preparing for that next heat can be just as intense as the big boats.
The starting clock will say 3 minutes. Yeah, that's when you can start. The first thing I do is turn on my radio.
He then runs through his checklist, and if everything looks good, Chet asks for some extra help, sets his boat on the water, and jets for another win.
125 points for Chet the Jet in the Circus.
In Kennewick, Sean Chitness, KNDU, right now.
While the big boats race on the river, each year, several radio-controlled racers come out to this pond to compete for their own Columbia Cup. Racers ran several heats and qualifying rounds before it came down to 7 drivers and 7 boats vying to get their name on the trophy. In the end, the winner took home the prize for a record 71st time.
You know, it's actually been pretty good. This year, I don't want to say I've been struggling, but there's another guy in the club that's been real fast, and he's been just having a real good streak, so I finally broke his streak today.
He maintains a lead in victories, with the next closest competitor behind by more than 30 wins. This weekend's win, though, is extra special. It's his first all year. Most importantly, it's a sport he enjoys with his whole family, and a victory they all share. The boats will be back on the water next month in Ellensburg. In Kennewick, Ileana Diaz, KNDU, right now.
Hi, my name is Dave Vilwock. See us in Victory, ILLWOCK. I'm from Auburn, Washington. I enjoy flying model airplanes, playing golf, skiing, all the things that regular people do. When I was little, my uncle raced boats, and like most racing families, I thought it was interesting and hung around the shop and swept the floor, did whatever I could do, and as I got an opportunity to drive a boat when I got older, and too stupid to quit, so I'm still here. Tri-Cities is the super speedway. It's something that just pays really precision driving. Water's usually pretty good, and so the guy that's technically more correct, his equipment's technically correct, will do very well here. There's nothing like it. There's the pure spectacle and size. An Indy car is about 10 feet long and 4 feet wide. you know, and these boats are 30 feet long and 14 feet wide, and they have 3,000 horsepower. So, you know, everything in hydroplane racing is excessive, you know, plus it's a fun thing for the family. It's a better bargain than any other motorsport. They can come down here and hang out on a beautiful riverfront and here with the kids and the family, have a good time and have some entertainment all day, whether it be boats, air show, smaller boats, just lots of entertainment for very few dollars. And so.
Hi, I'm Steve David from Lighthouse Point, Florida. When I'm not driving the Oh Boy Oberto, I run Florida Professional Real Estate in Southeast Florida. We're 8 offices through all of Southeast. Started racing when I was 14 years old in the limited ranks and moved to the Unlimiteds in 1988 and have been with the Oberto team since 2001. We're the defending Lamb Weston Cup champion 2 years in a row, so we're looking for a three-peat this weekend. Tri-City is a whole thing. I mean, the environment for me is so much different than Southeast Florida. The people are outstanding. I've met an awful lot of friends here over the years in your golf tournaments and all the social events. The race course is outrageous. It's like our Talladega. And because we've won here a lot, we especially like that aspect. I don't think they've ever seen as much competition as we have this year. There's 12 boats here, give or take 10 that could win at any instant. There'll be 10 qualified well over 150 miles an hour. So I don't think they're ever going to see as competitive as a Lamb Weston Cup as they have this weekend. We're going to win. I mean, we came here to win. We've won it the last 2 years in a row, and we're currently the national champion. We're leading in points, and we do not want to give that up.
Scott and Christine, Steve David hit it right on the head. We had 10 boats above 150 miles an hour qualified, a lot of them bunched together, so we have a very, very evenly matched field. And when that happens, and when you get the two fastest qualifiers next to each other on the outside and the lane to the left, sometimes these, as Dave Vilwalk said, 3,000 horsepower, 6,750 pound 28-foot boats don't go exactly where the driver wants them to. So we had a great shot from the overhead camera, Steve Montgomery.
Yeah, as you know, there's been a little bit of controversy. Watch these boats. Now watch the spacing between the red boats, and you see Steve David disappearing between the boats in lane 3 and 4. He is unhappy with the boat to his left and the boat to his right. You see Steve back there in 4th. He gets into the rooster tail of the 7 again. Now we can show this again, I think, and you need to watch the way these lanes work and decide for yourself whether Steve David has a complaint with the boat to his left and or the boat to his right. Is Vilwalk leaving room inside? Well, it looks like there's a lot of room between Dave Vilwalk and the buoy line. The U7 mark, it looks to me, has moved out a little bit, and now he comes back in next to his teammate. So we are not the officials, but this is what they saw from above. And I know you folks back in the Midwest want to see penalties called on that white boat that favor your Oh Boy Oberto, and you can see Steve looking around there for a racing lane, and there is a nice wide one. But there wasn't always. Look at here now. His lane kind of goes away, but whose fault is it? We won't make the call, but we'll show it to you again, and you can decide who is at fault here. Steve David now kind of out of whack and looking for a lane. He drives back into the rooster tail of the U7, swings out wide, and right there's his lane. Now right here there's a lot of room, Mark, but there wasn't at the apex of the turn.
Now once you get into one of those rooster tails, it's not like you have windshield wipers on that cockpit. It's more like driving through a car wash following a semi-trailer in a rainstorm. You can't see anything, so once you get into that rooster tail, you do have to go look for your lane again once you come out.
Yeah, he really did a very nice job of coming through that. I don't know if we're going to show it again, but if we do, keep in mind you need to look at the two red boats that are on the inside. Watch the lanes that they are in and the lanes they should be in. Watch the white boat on the outside. His job is to carve a turn in lane 4 or 5 and leave room. See, it looks to me, Mark, like one of the red boats has moved out substantially and perhaps created the problem.
That would be Kelly.
But the referee looking down on this had exactly the same view as our camera did. And so those of you across the country watching this replay can now chat it up in the forums and decide what happened right there. Did the 96 come in at all, or was the problem caused by the 7, who certainly moved out a little and then moved back in to get next to his teammate?
And some great coverage and camera shots from our crew. Thank you, guys. That was absolutely incredible.
Now remember, the referee is sitting right next to our cameraman, so he was looking down on the very same scene. He doesn't have the luxury of the replay. He has to call it with the naked eye. And I'm not sure what calls are going to come out of that. Perhaps they'll even come up and look at our video. If they do, I think I know what they're going to call.
Well, we are going to take a look at some of our vintage unlimited hydroplanes. These are from years gone by.
This is actually footage from yesterday, and these are two of the outstanding vintage race boats. Interestingly, there are many, many boats, Mark, that have been restored by the Hydroplane and Race Boat Museum in Seattle. These two are actually replicas. These were built as labors of love for a couple of groups over in the Seattle area. The one on the outside there is Dixon Smith and family, who built
got washed down.
Right, they built the Miss Birdall. Steve Compton and a group called Vashon's Unlimited built this Miss Thriftway, which is an exact copy of a Bill Munsey Miss Thriftway from 55, 56. So these are not old boats that were rebuilt, although many in the museum are, and they do a tremendous job. Volunteers put thousands of hours into restoring the old boats, and there's a pretty good fleet of them over at the museum in Kent. If you're over that way, we suggest you stop in. It's a great way to spend an afternoon, especially with the kids, and I would say that, Mark, even if I were not on their board of directors.
Yes, a plug for the Hydroplane and Race Boat Museum. On the right-hand side of your screen, the 1955 Miss Thriftway, a boat that ran only about a year and a half because it was destroyed in Madison, Indiana in September of 1956. Took about a 10-foot leap out of the water. We see that happen with these boats quite often. You saw what happened to Ken Muscatel's boat when he got a little bit of air and a big hole. Unfortunately, in the day, these boats were all made out of wood. The boat, the structure, everything was wood. And when that boat came down, it threw Bill Munsey out because these drivers are not strapped in at all, and the boat disintegrated. Another Miss Thriftway was built for the following season. On the left-hand side of your screen, Dixon Smith and the beautiful Green Dragon, the U-40 Miss Bardall, a boat that would have been racing in 1962, 63, 64, won the Gold Cup and the National Championship those 3 years.
Also here this weekend and running a couple of very, very legendary boats. Chip Hanauer is actually here driving an Atlas Van Lines, one of those. It's not the Blue Blaster. It's actually the one that was built to replace the Blue Blaster after Bill Munsey's crash in Acapulco. And Dean Chenoweth's very legendary Griffin-powered Miss Budweiser. So now there's the Atlas from yesterday. That's Chip Hanauer in the cockpit. Talk about taking you back in history right there. And again, just a tremendous tip of the hat to all the volunteers from the Hydroplane and Race Boat Museum who have made this exhibition possible. That is David Williams, the executive director of the museum, driving the Griffin-powered Miss Budweiser out on the outside. And that's a scene right there that we saw many times, Mark, right here on the Columbia River. These two boats side by side.
Absolutely. The Griffin Budweiser with David Williams in the cockpit. Originally constructed and started racing in 1980, raced in 80 and 81, was the national championship. Then all of a sudden, the Atlas Van Lines, you just saw David Williams go by, and there's the two shot there with the Atlas Van Lines and Chip Hanauer on the right-hand side, on the inside, if you will, of the race course. In 1982, that boat came on the scene, Chip Hanauer driving, and they won the national championship 2 years in a row, in 82 and 83, and the Griffin Budweiser was second. A great rivalry between those two. I've heard Chip say he even sees now in his dreams every once in a while that boat right next to him.
And tragically, as was the case all too often in the past, the drivers of these two great boats lost their lives in racing accidents. Actually, one was a racing situation, Bill Munsey in Acapulco. Dean Chenoweth qualifying the Griffin boat right here in the Tri-Cities, and it did a spectacular 360-degree flip, landed on the driver, and the driver simply never had a chance. So much has been done to improve the safety of racing. Unfortunately, we are not running these boats at 185 miles per hour, as was the case back in their day. We think it's fairly safe, Mark, to come out and drive around like this, and we certainly hope that all goes well here. But a lot of history and some very great names associated with the four boats that you just saw.